Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Forget Me Not Village Streamcast. I'm Brian Prowitz, your host, along with the world-famous and notorious Pam Spetta, the founder of Forget Me Not Village, for another streamcast, another conversation, another update on what you've been up to, Pam, and what is happening in the world of dementia care. I know that you're getting comments and support from people all over the place with your idea about a care village that's never been seen before, and everybody seems to love. And so I know your world is always spinning with new stuff happening all the time. So before we get a chance to talk to our guest today, Kevin Mansfield, what's an update on how things are going for you?
Oh, it's going really, really well. I'm about to close on a very large home in Roseburg that is actually going to house a total of 4 couples once we get the remodel done. And we will have adult daycare actually in the city, which is going to be pretty cool. It's got a gymnasium. It's got a pool. It's going to be really, really, really super cool. Of course, 99 down on the highway is still going because that's the epitome. But yeah, we're going to get it up and running and started because there's just so many people that need the help, that need the support. So this is what we're going to do, by golly.
Well, I know you are out there on the road. Tell us about where you're coming to us from today and what might be going on with you.
Yes, I am down here in Chandler, Arizona. I'm staying with my son because I have some appointments with an individual, a couple of individuals. One's on the board of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation for Alzheimer's and veterans. The other one actually builds nursing homes, and he franchises them. So we had a really nice discussion yesterday for quite a while, talking about how to do that, how we can expand into other towns as well. And that went really well, So, I mean, the contacts are going like crazy. The reception is amazing. And, what can I say? I'm just super excited about how everything is going, even with COVID putting a shutdown on everything. So, yeah, for sure.
Well, maybe things are getting a little better here and there on that front. So how did it go April 30th? You had your informational get together, and we thought I'd just kind of check in. You got a chance to talk to people a little bit, and probably the first time in a long time for you to be able to interact with people face to face.
Yeah, it went really, really well. Ironically, it was on Zoom and it was in person. And in person, of the people in the audience, we had 5 registered nurses that were caring for their dementia husband. That was really interesting, 5 of them. And it was like, they can't wait until this facility is built because they need help. And several of them actually, broke down in tears and kept saying, this is your answer to God's prayer. I've been praying and praying and praying, and you're the answer, and all I need is help. And I mean, It was just really, it was very heart-wrenching to watch this, to know how many need help. And these are registered nurses. You'd think they can handle about anything. But this is one job that it truly takes everything you have in order to be able to make that care happen.
5 registered nurses in your audience with this in their lives seems to prove your repeating message, which is more and more people are going to have to face some kind of memory care situation in their lives, either themselves or their spouses or loved ones.
Correct. Getting more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
That's why I can't wait for this home to open, where people can actually see the changes that we can do, that we can, see it work, for sure.
Well, you can visit forgetmenotvillage.org to see a video that explains everything that we're talking about, to talk about Pam's background, her relationship with Teepa Snow, the effort she's putting forth, lots and lots of information, because basically we are in fundraising mode right now for Forget Me Not Village to build a one-of-a-kind, most likely very repeated, once this one gets built, probably something that will be repeated in other places. But here in Roseburg, it's really something to think about and to appreciate. And that's the big reason behind what we're doing here with this Streamcast. We want this shared between people who might know a loved one someplace else, doesn't matter where they live, that can learn from some of the same places and sources that Pam has learned from and teaches from. And that's the purpose behind this. The other purpose behind this is for you to ask questions or make comments that we can possibly answer live in the program. And possibly also, if you have questions of our guest who will be coming up here in just a moment, you can do that live in the chat, both on Facebook and on YouTube. And we really want those comments to come in because we would love to interact with you live as we talk about this very, very important topic. Right. So, Pam, why don't you introduce our guest today, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm really happy to have Kevin Mansfield on our program today. Last month, the Parkinson's Association and Michael J. Fox Foundation asked me to represent them on Capitol Hill to meet with the congressman and talk about additional funding that's needed for Parkinson's. Well, I met 4 of the most amazing people you ever want to meet in your life. These are people that have Parkinson's, that have found ways that even though they're seriously ill, they're still out there helping others. They're trying to make changes. One was actually a beautiful girl, 40 years old, with 2 little children that was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And her story actually brought me to tears. It was amazing. But Kevin, he was like the boss of the crew. He was the one that has had all the experience about advocating for Parkinson's. I continually learn more and more, basically every day, about the disease and how it impacts people. Now, Rich had Lewy body dementia with Parkinson's symptoms, which means he wasn't actually diagnosed with Parkinson's, but he had the hand tremor and he had the gait that you have with Parkinson's. And I do mentor a Parkinson's support group, which we're going to be starting Parkinson's boxing here pretty soon, which I'm all excited about. It's going to be fun. But Kevin has Parkinson's, and he has been an advocate for Parkinson's research for, 20 years, Kevin, at least? How long have you been working as an advocate?
I've been working as an advocate for 8 years now.
8 years. And how long have you had Parkinson's?
I was diagnosed in 2001, so I've had Parkinson's for 20 years.
Amazing. So what's your prognosis? What is your life like for you right now?
It changes all the time. Right, I have a lot of tremors and stuff, which I've had from the beginning. And I experience slowness of speech, but as time's going on and stuff, I'm noticing that it has a problem with my brain on trying to complete my thought. So excuse me today. This happens to me a bit and stuff. My brain just kind of goes on a blank out once in a while, and I lose my train of thought. And sometimes I can get it back, and sometimes I can't. But this is very disturbing and stuff, especially if I'm talking to our representatives or our senators. But I tell them that in advance what my problem is, and they understand fully and very patient with me.
Yeah, that was amazing how when they would walk in the room, they say, "Hey, Kevin, how are you?" You know, they knew who you are as soon as you were in the room, which is really pretty good. Meaning you're knowing them on first name basis because you've been there so many times. But tell me, some of the things that I learned was that the Department of Defense is the one in charge of research for Parkinson's. Why is that?
You're talking about the Department of Defense?
Yes.
And that's what we asked for funding for increase for this year. It's because they do a lot of research and stuff on the military, the people that serve our country and stuff. They've undergone different chemicals and stuff, such as Agent Orange, that they're finding now has caused Parkinson's in a lot of the military people. At times they suffer head trauma and different types of things when they're out in the service. So it's important that the Department of Defense gets the money that we asked for. It's been holding it $16 million a year for about the last 9 years. And this year we asked the representatives and senators to raise it to $25,000.
25 million?
Or 25 million, sorry.
It just blew me away. I never even thought the Department of Defense would be in that position to do the research. And the fact that it hasn't increased in the last 9 years is really pretty pathetic because of all these kids that are coming back now from our wars that are suffering from dementia and Parkinson's. I know from my dementia research that those kids in the military have a 50% greater chance of getting dementia than the average guy out there does. And you know what? That's really high. And if we don't do something to stop that and stop it like quick, we're going to have a country full of our young adults that are supposed to be working and supporting families and everything actually under medical care. So big surprise about the Department of Defense. To your knowledge, has there been any new research out there? Has there been anything new that has come about in Parkinson's cure or research that you're aware of?
Not a whole lot that I can think of. I know Michael J. Fox Foundation is one of the biggest nonprofit suppliers for research. They have their own doctors and stuff. And they're always trying to come up with new medications. Michael J. Fox's goal is to stop Parkinson's, put himself out of business. He's had it for 20 some years. And they're trying to make headway and stuff. The problem is that if they can find it, new medications and stuff to help us, that it takes like 5 years to go through the FDA before we can get it out to our hands. But
really?
I know that they're constantly working on it.
Well, the one thing I know from mentoring my Parkinson's group, they talk a lot about exercise and how important it is. And my people have told me that because the fitness centers are closed, that their symptoms are coming back. So there must be some sort of correlation between exercise and symptoms. Is that true?
Yeah, they tell us or encourage us to do as much exercise as possible. It's amazing on how much it can cut down some of your symptoms. I'll give you an example. I don't remember his name, but he rides bicycles a lot for long distances that has Parkinson's. And before he goes on a ride, he has really bad tremors. And then after his ride for, I don't know, maybe half hour, so his tremors are gone.
Wow.
Kind of like a different person and stuff. But a lot of people have started doing boxing by Zoom now because of the restrictions and everything. Or there's some classes that you can take online through Zoom for people that can't move very much for like sit down exercises and stuff is great.
Well, and I also heard that there are Parkinson's sniffing dogs out there that are trained to sniff out Parkinson's 20 years before we actually know it's there, because Parkinson's starts about 20 years before we see symptoms. Is that what you understand also?
Yeah, that's what I understand. I think I had a sign of Parkinson's when I was young. I started having tremors and stuff. At that time, I was talking to my doctor about it, and that was before Parkinson's was well known as it is now, or studied. And all they told me at that time was that it was probably stress or too much caffeine or coming up with different things, but they didn't have Parkinson's on their mind at that time for research, I don't think, or science.
So, judging from what I heard from the other advocates, it seems like there still isn't a lot of information out there about Parkinson's. You know, that basically you're up to your own initiative to be able to go out and find those resources, but you actually found some that have helped you tremendously. Can you tell us what those resources are and what they have?
My main resource is Parkinson's Resources of Oregon, that I'm a facilitator with, have been for the last 20 years that I've had Parkinson's. The sad news is when I went finally to a neurologist because I was having problems at work, and I took some medical leave, and my doctor finally sent me to a neurologist during that time. She said, you have Parkinson's, come see me in 6 months. That's all she said. So I didn't know what Parkinson's was, what to look for, or anything. So I went home and I checked the internet, and I got really discouraged, really depressed, really sad, really fast, because all it did was told me about all the advanced stages of Parkinson's. It didn't explain it, telling me that it's slow, slow process and stuff. So in my research, I found Parkinson's Resources of Oregon, and I called them, and they talked to me probably for a couple hours, calming me down, telling me it's a slow progression type thing and stuff, and asked me if I'd be interested in joining a support group. And I said, sure, I'd like any information or help that I can do. At that time, they only had about 14 support groups, and they put me on a waiting list to get another one started. And they called me about, within a month or so, I'd say, and asked me if I was interested. And I said, sure. So we met downtown Portland at a doctor's conference room. And there was 45 of us in that room. Yeah. So it was a stand-up, wall-to-wall meeting, and that happened for a couple of months. Then we decided to split groups because that was way too big. And shortly after that, they asked me to be a facilitator, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years. The Parkinson's Resources of Oregon is a great place. They have a library, lending library, that you can get information, books and stuff. The staff as well knows a lot about Parkinson's. They'll give you resources if you're having personal problems and stuff, suggestions on where to go.
So how old were you when you were diagnosed?
When I was officially diagnosed, I was 42.
Wow. So you were about Amy's age. That's pretty.
Yeah, a little bit older, but yeah.
Yeah, about Amy's age. That is, so for people out there listening to you, what were some of the symptoms? What were some of the things that you noticed that sent you to the doctor?
Actually, it was my coworkers. I had tremors, slight tremors and stuff, and they were showing up more, or my coworkers noticed it more than I did. And my handwriting was getting, I worked at a warehouse type thing, and my handwriting was getting real small and hard for them to read, as well as the customers that I had to go out to for invoices and stuff. And I had a large amount of short-term memory. I cost the company thousands of dollars in a couple days and didn't realize it. So I was in a packing part of the company, making animal feed is what we were doing, and some things can't be mixed together. And I'd end up putting them in big silos that went out to farms or stuff, and mixed stuff up that couldn't be mixed up. And I had no idea at all what I had done. So after getting called on the carpet for that 2 days in a row, I decided I worked graveyard. So on my Monday, I called in sick and went to the doctor and asked him to put me on medical leave. And within a couple of days, they sent me to a neurologist. And that's when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's and said I couldn't work.
So you said that you thought you might have had Parkinson's way before that. What was the key? What made you think that maybe something was wrong even that far ahead of the diagnosis?
It was the tremors that I had in my hand. I had small tremors in my hand that lasted a while, not on a consistent basis, but I had a lot of shakiness in my right arm, which I'm right-handed. So it got kind of bothersome, so I thought I'd go to the doctor, and he just said it was too much coffee or nerves or stress or different things.
So is that basically one of the first symptoms you see as a tremor?
It's different for everybody, but that's one of the main signs.
I know Rich had a tremor, and that's why they said first that he had Parkinson's, and then when the rest of the symptoms didn't manifest, although they could have very easily, but didn't. He passed away before that. But yeah, the hand tremor was pretty significant. Difficulty holding cups and that kind of good stuff. So yeah, pretty rough. So how can people out there listening to you get more information. What can we do? Can we write our congressman? What can we do to say, you know what, this disease is devastating and it's getting younger and younger people, and we need to fix this. We need to find a cure for that. What would you suggest they do?
If they're having problems and needing help and stuff, I would suggest that they call Parkinson's Resources of Oregon. If they want to become advocates, which is very easy, I suggest that they go to the Michael J. Fox, I think it's .org site, and you could sign up there to send out letters that are already pre-made for your congressman. It's called an ask, and they have different subjects and stuff. Right now it was like the support for the DOD. They have about 5 up right now. One is to make medications affordable for everybody. I know one time I went to the doctor and he wanted to give me a new medication for my Parkinson's, and when I went to the pharmacy, I found out that it wasn't covered, and it was going to cost me like $350 a month that I could not afford. So I couldn't start taking this medication. I had to go back and tell my doctor that I couldn't take it because of the cost. I've gone to town hall meetings. I talked to our representatives and to our senators. And one of the town hall meetings, they were talking about drugs and the effects. I was representing the state of Oregon for people with Parkinson's at that time. And a lot of people have the same problems. We have to decide at times, as bad as they are, sometimes whether we're going to take our medications or sometimes pay for food or bills. I just sent 2 letters to our senators this morning asking them to sign the bill to give funding to the Department of Defense, which was one of the things when I became a public advocate that I was surprised about the DOD myself.
Yeah, that was a huge surprise for me. I had no idea. But then, of course, like you said, the connection between our soldiers coming back from, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all those places, it's devastating on them. They know that an awful lot of these guys, if they're not getting Parkinson's, they're getting dementia. And they're living under our bridges. They are not mentally ill. They have dementia, which is a totally different treatment. Really needs to be looked at in a lot more earnest. A lot of people need to be aware of what's going on. I think the other interesting thing that I've learned is the relationship between your diet and Parkinson's, and how when you eat things that you shouldn't eat, like things full of chemicals or things that are hard to digest, or things like acid reflux and dopamine, which is the feel-good drug for your brain, is actually made in your stomach. So if your stomach stops producing dopamine, then that's going to be the beginning of some serious problems, because the treatment tries to duplicate the dopamine in your brain. Is that about right? Isn't that levodopa is all about?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we lose is the what you just said, the dopamine in our brain,
right,
isn't functioning. It's not producing anymore, and that's what the levodopa carbidopa does. But we just Parkinson's Resources just had a conference last month, and I believe it's if you go to the website that you can watch it, a conference from 2 doctors, and one of the doctors was talking about foods that we eat and stuff, and talking about the chemicals that are in our foods that we don't realize.
I know. It's like amazing, all the stuff we're putting in our body, we don't even realize it. And if you've got, a tendency towards Parkinson's, that could be pretty deadly for you. It could advance it, make it worse. So the idea is to, I don't think there's anything at this point you can do about all the symptoms, but you can certainly decrease the symptoms by watching a dietary intake and, some of the levodopas, things that are out there that can replace the dopamine that your body is not generating itself. I was truly surprised. I had no idea, none whatsoever. And I know my group, they are very self-conscious about exercising out in public because, just like you look fine. You look like there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And they're the same way, only they're still working, and they're very self-conscious about exercising in front of other people that look at them and say, well, why can't you do that? You look like you can lift 100-pound weight or something like that, and they really can't. So that was one of the reasons for this home that I'm building, is so that they can have the privacy to be able to exercise with people just like them that aren't there to judge. They're strictly there to improve. Just a real eye-opening for me all the way around. Things I didn't know and things that aren't generally known out there. And I think for everybody out there, realize that, yeah, nobody's going to escape, just like dementia. Somebody's going to be out there, somebody's life is going to be devastated by the disease. We have to get more research. We have to get better access to meds. I know Rich was on one medication. When I started, it was only, I think it was right around $30, $40 a month. But in the next 6 months, it had gone up to $200 a month. And I was just like, why? Why is this ridiculous? Why are the drugs going up that fast? So, I mean, certain controls have got to be out there in order to be able to keep us with the medications that we have to have, and quicker FDA approval, because the disease is just devastating, So is there anything that you would like to tell those watching that you think we've missed or that they should know?
Well, I just know that this is a very growing disease. When I was diagnosed in 2001, and like I said, we had 14, maybe 15 support groups in Oregon, Southwest Washington, and now 20 years later, we're up to over 60 support groups in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And they're predicting that within the next 10 years, this disease is going to double.
Wow.
And it doesn't really matter what age you are. Like I said, I was diagnosed officially when I was 42. In one of my trips to Washington, D.C., I met two mothers that just had their first child, and they were diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh, no.
I met a gentleman that was 21 years old, and he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And then I go to a lot of health fairs and walks and different types of things, trying to get the word out, trying to help people and stuff. And I had an elder gentleman that we were talking about Parkinson's and stuff, and he was starting to tear up. And I'm the type of person that likes to try and help people the best I can. So I asked him if there was something I could do. He was telling me that it was a very rare case, but his 8-year-old grandson was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
8 years old?
So
my gosh.
It doesn't matter how old we are, what sex we are, what color we are, or anything like that. It's a growing disease, and we need Congress and we need people to get the funding so that we can find a cure for this disease. If we can find a cure for this disease, it will tie in, I believe, with probably like Alzheimer's and other diseases.
Right. That's a great point there, Kevin. I mean, oh my goodness. I can't imagine an 8-year-old. What is the life expectancy for someone that has Parkinson's? Do you die of Parkinson's, or do you die of something else?
Parkinson's is, I think, within the top 13 things that people die from. But most likely, in a lot of cases, when people die, they have Parkinson's, which they might blame that on it. But they have like maybe a heart attack, or they have other health problems. Like I've got other health problems besides Parkinson's. I got diabetes, which could affect it. There's any number of other diseases or sicknesses that could encounter. I've known personally a couple of people that came down with a very bad case of pneumonia. Wow. And ended up passing away, but they ended up blaming the Parkinson's on it.
Wow.
But the sicknesses and stuff that you get, if you don't take care of them, can affect your Parkinson's and make it worse.
Wow. So I think we have a question for you in the chat. Brian, what kind of question do we have for Kevin? Brian, you there?
Yep, I just put it up on the screen. Kevin, how did you come to be connected with the Michael J. Fox Foundation?
I was a facilitator with Parkinson's Resources of Oregon at the time, and they have a yearly conference. And at this conference, it was about 8 years ago, there was a gentleman there, and at that time it was called PAN, Parkinson's Action Network, which Michael J. Fox backed. And the gentleman was talking about Social Security and how they were advocating to get Social Security to pass a law accepting Parkinson's as a degenerative disease. When I was diagnosed in 2001, I had to fight for 2 years to get Social Security because they didn't want to acknowledge the non-motor skills as a degenerative disease. And this boosted my interest, and I wanted to know how I can get involved with things like that. So I got in contact with him. He was from Washington, D.C., and he sent me the information for a state director that was here in Oregon. I contacted her, and I had her come to my support group and talk to us about how she got involved in the important things that they do. And again, that made my interest great, and I wanted to find out more information, so I asked how I could personally get involved. And she told me how to get involved by going to the Michael J. Fox Foundation website and signing up, and I did that. And then I became the assistant state director, and we talked to all of the representatives and our senators. We go to town hall meetings. I chase them down to different functions if they're here in Portland. I even talked to one on the plane on the way home from DC one year. So if I see them, I don't care where they are. They'll try and talk to them. But yeah, and then her health got bad and stuff, so they made me state director for the PAN. And then a couple of years after had passed since then, and then Michael J. Fox just took it over and had the public policy advocate in part of his organization. So that's how I became involved in all that, and very grateful that I've had the privilege to talk to our senators and our representatives. Like I said, this is my 8th year, so they kind of know who I am, like Pam said earlier. But they'll listen to me, what I have to say. They'll answer my questions. They always send me back emails. I've had some people in other states that are advocates and stuff get a little jealous because their senators and their representatives don't get back to them as much as I'm able to. So we have great people out there. Something that's important to pass on to people is that they love to hear people's stories. To hear the individual stories from a person that has Parkinson's or even a caregiver is important to them. And they remember that when they go down on the House floor trying to pass a specific law. They'll remember the stories. They said, well, I had 5 or 6 people come, and this is their stories that they have. It's how this disease affected them. We need this law passed because of these reasons.
Beautiful, Kevin. Just beautiful. Thank you so much.
We have another question. Let's throw this one at Kevin from our good friend Barbara. Well, we talked about the bad foods to eat. Kevin, what are some of the good foods we're supposed to eat?
Not a good question for me. I'd have to do a little research on that and check if you go to the Parkinson's Resources of Oregon website and you click on the video for the conference, would be the best way to answer that, because it was a doctor that talks about all of the good foods to eat. Some foods that we're eating, she'll explain why they're bad. I'm not really the person for that, I'm sorry. But that's where I would send somebody to go for research on that.
What our group found was a lot of organic fruits and vegetables. Stay away from beef, stay away from pork. I mean, it's very, very restricted. Anything that may have some sort of chemical on there that our body might deem as foreign is probably a no-no. It definitely, and I have got the list of those, of what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat and that kind of good stuff. So if you want to contact me, I'd be glad to share that with you, because it is pretty restrictive, and it's understandable why, because it explains the reasons in our DNA and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I know she said one of the foods I like is the no-no is dairy foods.
Yeah. Yeah, no
especially
dairy.
cheese.
No cheese and no dairy. I'd be in trouble for sure. Yeah. Wow. Well, you have just been amazing there, Kevin. I knew you would be. Thank you so much. Keep
Well,
up
thank
the
you
good
for
work.
inviting me.
And you know I can help you as much as I can, for sure. You know,
I'm here as well.
I'm going to have to invite you down when we get our care home open, so you can see what's going on down here in old little Roseburg, Oregon, for sure. But yeah, thank you. It's so good talking to you.
If anybody has questions that they want to ask me, they can feel free to email me if they would like. If I can give that email address out, is grandpakevin@msn.com is what I have on my business cards.
Cool. Okay, Grandpa Kevin. I am sure you're going to get people asking tons of questions. Tons of questions. Thank you.
That's great. I'm always happy to help.
Yes, I know you are. You're a good guy. It's a pleasure knowing you. Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to your group.
You bet. You bet.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. You can stand by if you'd like to chat, or we'll let you go on for the rest of your day, but we do appreciate your time for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Pam, just a couple other things to talk about. I mean, first of all, I'm going to watch that video for sure, because I'm pretty sure my list of what I eat probably is the list of things not to eat.
Yeah, it's on there.
You know, the more I spend time around you and listen to these experts talk, the more I realize that there is no moment when you can say I'm not old enough yet.
That's
especially
right.
if an 8-year-old has been diagnosed, which certainly not the rule, probably the exception, but still there is no, well, I don't have to worry about this until later, which I'm almost 50 now. So I suppose my list of things that I could put off now, every one of them is probably coming due. It's time to rotate the tires, you know. So, and I definitely want to get a preview of our next guest, but I also wanted to throw a comment that came in through Facebook up here. And I think you're going to recognize this question, but I'd like you to maybe talk a little bit about what Juliana is talking about right here. She said that something had happened and she remembered a conversation the two of you had, and she said she thought she'd read somewhere that Oregon has a law that the state can garnish funds from family members. And she wanted to know if that was possible or anything, but I thought that was a good question. And maybe you can talk about that with your background in investment finance. You probably are pretty familiar with rules around stuff like this.
Yeah, and that is not the case. What they're talking about is garnishing family members. If you try and transfer assets in order to qualify for Medicaid, yes, the state can come back and ask for that money back. So that may be what she's looking at. There is a 5-year look at policy. So they can go back, and if you sent, $20,000-$30,000 to your kids, and the state can say, hey, they're on Medicaid, you've got to bring that back in, and they're going to be disqualified until that amount of money is gone. So that's the only way. A lot of people think that kids are responsible for their parents and their finances, and that's truly not the case. That's really very dangerous for family members to take on paying privately for care for family members, because then they put their own selves in jeopardy, and that's not a good idea. So next week, I've got Sarah Wolf, who's an attorney that I have worked with for many, many, many years, that's going to talk about all the legal forms and the legal things that you have to have in place for each other, just in general, not just when you get dementia, but especially when you get dementia, things that you have to have legally to be able to get medical information, to be able to, that's the biggie, to do things, sell the house or whatever you need to do. So she's going to talk about that on our next meeting, and that's going to be really, really interesting for everyone to hear, because she's a good attorney.
Yeah, well, I hope people understand that are watching right now that your background from a financial advisor and then a registered nurse, I mean, you have a wide range of experiences that people can ask questions about. And in addition to dementia care, memory care, head injuries, all of these things, there's the entire very difficult, sometimes extremely ugly side of the finances and financial questions that, first of all, families would be saddled with, depending on how the care goes, but also what happens when the person dies, or how can we use some finances? How can we move retirement money over here to try to save the day for the family? And so one thing that I think you bring forward is the ability for people to ask questions on a lot of different levels. And I'm hoping that as people see these streamcasts as we go along and keep adding to the episodes, that they begin to get more comfortable asking you those kinds of questions. Sure. Of course, the other element to this is that you can always send an email to Pam and ask her those questions, or ask the question right here on Facebook or YouTube. If you have very specific questions about what's happening, Pam is an incredible resource. So Pam, you bring a lot of different planks in your platform.
Well, I'm old. I've done a lot of stuff.
Well, good. So next up in a couple of weeks, Attorney Sarah Wolf will be our guest, like Pam said. So there are going to be some questions around that. And we've already gotten a response from somebody saying they're looking forward to that conversation. So once again, just an invitation for everybody to visit forgetmenotVillage.org. Check out all the information that's available there about Pam's story, about she and her husband, Rich, and the experience that both of them had with Lewy body syndrome, and the way that affected Pam's life, and now why she is so motivated to share this information. We would love for you to share these streamcasts from Facebook and YouTube with friends that you may know, and we'll continue to build the audience here and really continue to educate people about how important it is to be aware of these diseases and these the treatments for them. And Pam, as you say all the time, it's important that we change society's opinion or perception of all of these issues. Correct. So I've talked for a while. I'll let you have the last word. It's your show after all.
Oh, no, I enjoy doing this. I enjoy getting information out. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll be going back to Capitol Hill representing the Alzheimer's Foundation for Alzheimer's research. So there's always something going on around me. That's for sure. Yep. But it's fun, and I can't wait to actually get out there and show people how this works, and that it's not a scary disease. You can walk through it and survive. You certainly can. So I'm really anxious to get all that started, and the wheels are going, and it's gonna keep on going until I get done.
Well, we hope that's no time soon. So thank you to Kevin Mansfield from the Michael J. Fox Foundation and Parkinson's Resources of Oregon for being our guest today. And we'll look forward to seeing Sarah Wolf on the program in a couple of weeks. So, well, Pam, thank you and great job. And we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, I guess.
You got it. Bye from Arizona.
All right.